Hi, my name is Karen, and I'm an American lay student of Ajahn Suchat, or Pra Ajahn Suchat Abhijato, who has given me the very special honor of being asked by him to record this book for you. This book was written by Pra Ajahn Suchat's own teacher, the Venerable Acariya Maha Nanasampanno, and is a spiritual biography written by him about his teacher, the Venerable Acariya Mun Buddhadatta Thera. The title of the book is Venerable Acariya Mun Buddhadatta Thera, a spiritual biography by Acariya Maha Nanasampanno, and it was published in 2005, translated into English by Bhikkhu Dick Silaratano. If you would like to learn how to download or get a hard copy of this book, or a list of which pages or chapters are read on each separate recording, please listen to the beginning of the first recording of this book. This book, in any form, is to be given away for free. Any ads you may see or hear in this recording have been put there by the platform you are using to listen or view with, for its own revenue, in exchange for letting us use their platform for free. Please forgive me for any mispronunciations of names, places, or words, as I'm still learning how to pronounce Thai and Pali, and for any background noises, as I'm just making these recordings in my apartment with an unruly dog and in the middle of a city. And we're continuing today on page 48. We are in chapter 1 in the last subsection titled Sawaka Arahants. In the years prior to his sojourn at Sarika Cave, Acariya Mun traveled into the neighboring country of Burma, later returning by way of the northern Thai province of Chiang Mai. Continuing on into Laos, he practiced the ascetic way of life for some time in the area around Luang Prabang, eventually returning to Thailand to spend the rains retreat near the village of Ban Kok in Loi province, quite close to Pa Pu Cave. The following rains retreat was spent at Pa Bing Cave, also in Loi province. Back then, these places were all wilderness areas, teeming with wild animals, where village communities were located far and few between. One could walk all day without coming across a single settlement. A person losing his way in the vast wilderness could find himself in the precarious situation of having to sleep overnight in an inhospitable environment at the mercy of tigers and other wild beasts. On one occasion, Acariya Mun crossed the Mekong River and settled in a large tract of mountainous forest on the Laotian side. While he camped there, a huge Bengal tiger often wandered into his living area. Always coming at night, it stood some distance away, watching him pace back and forth in meditation. It never displayed threatening behavior, but it did roar occasionally as it wandered freely around the area. Being well accustomed to living in close proximity to wild animals, Acariya Mun paid little attention to the tiger. During that excursion, he was accompanied by another monk, Acariya Sita, who had been ordained slightly longer than he had. A contemporary of Acariya Mun, Acariya Sita excelled in the practice of meditation. He liked the type of seclusion that the wilderness offered, preferring to live in the mountains stretching along the Laotian side of the Mekong River. Only occasionally did he cross the river into Thailand, and then never for very long. On that occasion, Acariya Mun and Acariya Sita were camped some distance apart, each depending on a separate village for his daily alms food. One night, while walking in meditation, Acariya Sita was visited by a huge Bengal tiger. The tiger crept in and quietly crouched forward to about 6 feet from his meditation track, right in between the lighted candles at each end of the track that allowed him to see as he paced back and forth in the dark. Facing the meditation track while remaining motionless, it sat there calmly like a house pet watching Acariya Sita intently as he paced back and forth. Reaching that place on the track opposite which the tiger was crouched, Acariya Sita sensed something out of place. At once he became suspicious, for normally nothing was at the side of his track. Glancing over, he saw the huge Bengal tiger crouched there, staring back at him. Since when, he couldn't tell. Still, he felt no fear. He merely watched the tiger as it sat motionless, looking back at him like an enormous stuffed animal. After a moment, he continued pacing back and forth, passing each time in front of the tiger. But thoughts of fear never crossed his mind. He noticed, though, that it remained crouched there for an unusually long time. Feeling sorry for it, he directed his train of thought at the tiger. Why not go off and find something to eat? Why just sit there watching me? No sooner had this thought arisen than the tiger let out a deafening roar that resounded through the whole forest. The sound of its roar left Acariya Sita in no doubt that it intended to stay, so he quickly changed tack, thinking, I thought that only because I felt sorry for you. I was afraid you might get hungry sitting there so long. After all, you have a mouth and a stomach to fill, just like all the other creatures. But if you don't feel hungry and want to sit there watching me, that's fine. I don't mind. The tiger showed no reaction to Acariya Sita's change of heart. It just crouched by the path and continued to watch him. He then resumed his meditation, taking no further interest in it. Some time later, he left the meditation track and walked to a small bamboo platform situated close by to take a rest. He chanted suttas there for a while, then sat peacefully in meditation until time to go to sleep, which he did, lying on the bamboo platform. During that entire time, the tiger remained crouched in its original position, not far away. But when he awoke at 3 a.m. to resume his walking meditation, he saw no sign of the tiger anywhere. He had no idea where it had gone. As it happened, he saw it only that once. From then on, until he left that place, it never appeared again. This incident intrigued Acariya Sita, so when he met with Acariya Mun, he described to him how the tiger had crouched there watching him. He told Acariya Mun the tiger had roared at the precise moment the thought arose wishing it to go away. He recounted how, although he wasn't conscious of any fear, his hair stood on end and his scalp went numb as if he were wearing a cap. But soon he again felt quite normal, resuming his walking meditation as though nothing had happened. Actually, there probably was a subtle measure of fear buried deep inside that he was incapable of perceiving at the time. Although the tiger never returned to his campsite, he often heard the sound of its roars echoing through the nearby forest. Still, Acariya Sita's mind remained resolute, and he continued to practice contentedly, as he always had. And that's the end of Chapter 1. We are now starting Chapter 2, which is titled The Middle Years. In the early years, when Acariya Mun first began wandering to Tonga, he started in the northeastern province of Nanasampanno. From there, he traveled across the provinces of Sakon Nakhon and Udon Thani, finally reaching Burma, where he stayed for a while before returning to Thailand by way of the northern province of Chiang Mai. Staying briefly there, he then traveled into Laos, practicing the ascetic way of life in Luang Prabang and later Vientiane before eventually returning to Loi province. From this northeastern locale, he wandered by stages down to Bangkok, spending a rains retreat at Wat Pa Baan Monastery. Following that retreat period, he took up residence in Sarika Cave, remaining there for several years. Only upon leaving Sarika Cave did he return to the northeast region. During all those years of extensive wandering, he almost always traveled alone. On only a few occasions was he accompanied by another monk, and even then they soon parted company. Acariya Mun always practiced with a single-minded resolve, which kept him aloof from his fellow monks. He invariably felt it more convenient to wander to Tonga alone, practicing the ascetic way of life on his own. Only after his heart had been sufficiently strengthened by higher spiritual attainment did the compassion arise which made teaching his fellow monks a priority. Such compassionate considerations were the reason why he left the peace and tranquility of Sarika Cave to journey back to the northeast. Previously, his early years of wandering to Tonga in the northeastern provinces had given him an opportunity to instruct some of the Kamatana monks he met there. On those days, he had found a large number of Dutanga monks practicing in various locations throughout the northeast. In making this return trip, Acariya Mun was determined to teach the monks and laity who trusted his guidance, putting all his energy into the task. Returning to the same provinces he had once wandered through, he found that monks and lay people everywhere soon gained faith in him. Many of them, inspired by his teaching, ordained as monks to practice the way he did. Even some senior acharyas, teachers in their own right, discarded their pride and renounced their obligations to practice under his tutelage, their minds eventually becoming so firmly established in meditation that they were fully confident of their ability to teach others. Monks among the first generation of Acariya Mun's disciples included Acariya Suan, the former abbot of Wat Aranyakawa Monastery in the Tabo district of Nong Khai Province, Acariya Singh Kantayakamo, the former abbot of Wat Pa Salawan Monastery in Nakhon Ratchasima, and Acariya Maha Pin Panyapalo, the former abbot of Wat Sadaram Monastery in Nakhon Ratchasima. All three of these venerable acharyas came originally from the province of Udon Ratchathani. All have now passed away. They were influential disciples whose teaching careers helped to perpetuate Acariya Mun's legacy for the benefit of future generations. Acariya Singh and Acariya Mahapin were brothers. Before taking up the way of practice, they thoroughly studied the Buddhist canonical texts. They were two of the senior acharyas who gained faith in Acariya Mun, discarding their pride and renouncing their obligations in order to follow the practice as he taught it. Eventually, through their teaching efforts, they were able to assist many people from all walks of life. Next in order of seniority was Acariya Tet Tesarangsi, who presently resides at Wat Hin Mak Peng Monastery in the Sri Chiang Mai district of Nong Khai Province. He is a senior disciple of Acariya Mun, whose exemplary mode of practice is so inspiring that he is highly revered by monks and laity in almost all parts of the country. His manner is always simple and down to earth, as one would expect with his exceptionally gentle, gracious, unassuming character. He conducts himself with perfect dignity, while people from all levels of society are captivated by his eloquent discourse. When it comes to temperament or personal behavior, senior acharyas differ in their natural qualities of mind and character. There are acharyas whose personal behavior is an excellent example for everyone to emulate. Those emulating them are bound to behave in a pleasing, amicable manner that's in no way offensive to other people. The personal behavior of some other acharyas, however, is pleasing and appropriate only when practiced by them personally. Should others adopt the same style of behavior, it's bound to appear false, immediately offending anyone exposed to it. So it is inadvisable for most people to imitate the idiosyncratic behavior of these acharyas. The personal conduct of Acariya Tet, however, is unimpeachable in this regard. Following his sterling example, one is bound to develop the kind of pleasing, amicable demeanor appreciated by people everywhere. He has such a gentle, kindly disposition that it can be easily emulated without the risk of offending others. His example is especially appropriate for Buddhist monks whose personal behavior should always reflect a truly calm and peaceful frame of mind. Acariya Tet is one of Acariya Mun's senior disciples who I believe deserves the highest respect. For as long as I have known him, I have always considered him to be an eminent teacher. Next in line is Acariya Phan Ajaro, who now resides at Wat Udon near the village of Nahua Chung in the Pananikom district of Sakon Nakhon province. He is widely known and lauded throughout the country for his excellent spiritual practice and his virtuous conduct. His mind excels in noble qualities, the most prominent being his immense loving kindness for people of all classes. He is a monk truly worthy of the enthusiastic devotion he receives from people of every region of our country. He genuinely puts his heart into helping people in any way he can, whether materially or spiritually, like one whose benevolence knows no bounds. The next senior disciple I shall mention is Acariya Khao Analyo, who presently resides at Wat Tham Klong Pen Monastery in the Nong Bua Lampu district of Udon Thani province. As he is one of the foremost meditation practitioners of our time, it's very likely that the reader is already familiar with his outstanding reputation. Both his mode of practice and his level of spiritual attainment are worthy of the utmost respect. He has always preferred to practice in remote, secluded locations with such a single-minded resolve that his diligence in this respect is unrivaled among his peers in the circle of Dhutanga monks. Even today, at the age of 82, he still refuses to allow his declining health to curtail his customary zeal. Some people have asked me, out of concern for his failing health, why he continues to put such strenuous effort into practice when in truth he has nothing further to accomplish. They can't figure out why he remains so active and energetic. I try to explain to them that someone who has completely eliminated the contentious factors that exploit every weakness to sap energy and hinder progress has no debilitating lethargy left to entrap his mind in a web of delusion. Meanwhile, the rest of us have amassed such a debilitating mountain of laziness that it virtually obscures us from view. As soon as we get started on some worthwhile endeavor, we become apprehensive lest the fruits of our efforts overload our capacity to store them. We worry ahead of time about how exhausted we'll be when the work becomes difficult. In the end, having failed to gather those wholesome fruits, we are left with an empty basket. That is, an empty, joyless heart, drifting aimlessly with no hard-earned store of merit to fall back on. Instead, we fill our empty hearts with complaints about all the difficulties we face. So laziness, this blight in our hearts, keeps throwing up obstacles to block our way. Those who have cleansed this blight from their hearts remain persistent, persevering in times of hardship. They never worry about overloading their capacity to store the fruits of their efforts. Those individuals whose hearts are pure, unblemished Dhamma, cleared of all worldly defilements, stand out majestically in all situations. Somber, sullen moods never arise in their hearts, making them perfect examples for the world to follow. Each of the above-mentioned disciples of Acariya Mun has certain brilliant qualities buried deep within his heart, shining there like precious gems. People having the good fortune to meet such noble teachers are bound to be rewarded with amazing insights to gladden their hearts, an experience they will cherish forever. Acariya Mun taught several different generations of disciples, many of whom have become important teachers in their own right. Being a meditation master of great stature, rich in noble virtues, he was wonderfully clever in the way he elucidated the path of practice and its fruits. It was as though he had a miniature Tipitaka etched into his heart, as was so accurately prophesied by the initial samadhi nimitta he saw when he first began to practice. Traveling to many regions of the country, During the course of his teaching career, he instructed large numbers of monks and lay supporters, who in turn developed a deep devotion for him and a genuine fondness for the edifying Dhamma he taught. His spiritual impact was a direct result of having realized within himself the true nature of that Dhamma. His words thus represented that truth which he had fully comprehended, not mere guesswork or conjecture about what the truth should be or might be. Being absolutely certain about the truth arising in his own heart, he taught this same truth to others. When Acariya Mun left Sarika Cave to return to the northeast for the second time, he was fully determined to teach the way to as many monks and laity as possible. Both his previous acquaintances, who had already undergone some training, as well as those who were just beginning to establish themselves in the practice. And we're going to end there today on page 59. In the next recording, we'll start on page 59, and that will be the beginning of the next section in chapter 2, titled The Dhutanga Practices. Until next time, with metta, bye-bye.